Pelipper is a Pokemon that has shot up in usage in this format, and I'd be shocked if it were dropped in this game because I think that it just pairs so nicely with the Calyrex Ice Rider. And so let's see. We're going to start out the game. It's going to be Rillaboom and Calyrex Shadow Rider from Dylan's end, and Pelipper indeed does make an appearance here next to that Calyrex Ice Rider. The horses have hit the field immediately.
I would say these horses have been unlorsed. On that note, yeah, we got some interesting dynamics here. We have the fake out pressure from the Rillaboom, which can buy a single turn, but the question is, like, who are you gonna fake out, and then what will the Pokemon that doesn't get fake outed go for, right? Because you can protect with both, but if this is, you know, fake out Astro Barrage, it can get kind of scary. And if it's like Wide Guard and protect maybe, or Wide Guard and attack, and the wrong Pokemon gets faked out, then yeah, like Nasty Plot is actually pretty threatening here. So the good news is that after this turn, I think the advantage switches to Zee's side because you have this Wide Guard, you have the Glacial Lance, which is pretty strong, but on this turn specifically, I think it can actually be a little bit spooky.
Yeah, I think that's what makes Calyrex Shadow Rider so tough to fight against, especially when you have double fake out support. One wrong turn, if this thing gets a free Nasty Plot off, it can just start sweeping. And so you can see the decision here. Do you want to protect Calyrex? Looks like it is going to try to protect here. And so if fake out goes into the Pelipper slot right now, and Calyrex has a Nasty Plot, that could get real spooky real quickly.
Let's see here what's going to happen. It is the Psy Shock.
Okay.
There's no fake out at all. Psy Shock is going to bring Pelipper low.
Who's just a double up? Oh, okay, Pelipper goes
faster. Okay, so I mean, obviously it would have been nice to maybe combo that with a Grassy Glide. We'll have to see what Rillaboom's using. Okay, just a U-turn. So maybe predicting something like a Wide Guard perhaps, or Wide Guard Trick Room, but even though only, like, you know, they traded about a little over 50% on both Pokemon, I actually think that's really, really bad for Dylan because how do you stop Glacial Lance and Wide Guard now?
Totally, yeah. So this is the interesting mind game, right? This is open team sheet, so both players know that the Pelipper actually carries Wide Guard, and so it's one of those mind games where you could see Dylan immediately not even trying to Astro Barrage on turn one, trying to get around the potential of Wide Guard, and that means that you can use that information to your advantage potentially if you are Z saying, well, you know I have Wide Guard, there's no way you're just going to click Astro Barrage in front of me, but this means that you, of course, can actually you really take a lot of damage from a combination of Astro Barrage and U-turn right now.
Oh, a Terra, actually. So this is going to be a little bit dangerous either way. If this is the Rillaboom, it is the Terra Fire, and... Okay, never mind. I got confused. Excuse me. It is the Terra Grass from the Calyrex here, so a good, safe defensive play. This is saying, hey, I might not be going for Wide Guard, but, like, I'm not under that much danger because I'm no longer weak to Ghost. We are going to see a Psy Shock, though. I'm really surprised to see that. Pelipper going down. This will activate the Grim Neigh ability from the Calyrex, but the thing is, Calyrex is in a ton of danger here, and if it goes down, I mean, the opposing Calyrex could just very quickly get out of control.
U-turn comes out, though, and because of the Grass Terra, well, it was, you know, going to do super effective damage before anyway, but the main point of the Grass Terra there was to cover for Astro Barrage coming out, especially with the decision to not go for Wide Guard there. And so, Psyshock and a Pelipper, safe. You know, you get that knockout if the Pelipper tries to attack, and if it goes for Wide Guard, you also get that knockout. So now the Urshifu is going to be able to switch in relatively safely. It's going to be able to take that Glacial Lance, but Calyrex Shadow Rider most definitely will feint to this, and now an attack boost on the opposing Calyrex.
Yeah, I think one thing we want to highlight here is that in, you know, prior formats without these restricted Pokemon, the Pokemon count kind of told roughly the right story, right? Oh, both players have 3 Pokemon left. The game is somewhat even. Here, both players have 3 Pokemon left, and I think technically Zee's actually maybe taken a bit more damage, but on Dylan's side, the Pokemon that's gone down is Calyrex Shadow, and on Zee's side, it's it's Pelipper. And so that's like not a trade that I personally would be super happy to make. And with Raging Bolt's a perfect Pokemon to come in here because, you know, you can't really easily protect in front of Urshifu because of the Unseen Fist ability, but here, Urshifu can't so freely go for an attack because of Thunderclap threatening it.
Yeah, one thing to note is that Dylan is also running the Water Terra on Urshifu, and so with that booster energy, you can just get the knockout with Thunderclap. There's no defensive Terra to prevent this, and so Rillaboom also can fake out one Pokemon, but you can't fake out both Pokemon, and with that Grass Terra as well, you resist Surging Strikes, and so I think he is in a really good offensive position right now, and like you mentioned, the trade was so great, right? You lost Pelipper, you have an attack boost on your Calyrex. This grassy terrain also is just healing Calyrex Ice Rider slowly, turn after turn as well, so I think right now for Z, it's very easy to just go for what I would say the obvious play is, because there's not much that can really stop it, and so we're gonna see how Dylan can respond, but it's honestly looking really difficult right now for him.
Yeah, this is probably the one defensive play they had available, which is, nope, never mind. not right about that. Okay, so instead, I was thinking maybe this is going to be a Terra Fire on the Rillaboom, fake out the Raging Bolt, get both your Pokemon to resist Ice, but no, actually doing something completely different here. Going for fake out into the Raging Bolt to ensure that you don't take that powerful Thunderclap, and with the Rain boost, and the Mystic Water boost and the Terra boost and the same type attack bonus boost. How much is this going to do?
127.
That's not a KO, but it is going to do a lot of damage, but you're just going to take so much in exchange from this Glacial Lance, because even though Urshifu does resist Glacial Lance, I mean, oh my god, that's so tanky that even an Aqua Jet probably isn't going to be enough to finish it off here. And yeah, Raging Bolt flinched, and that's like nice and all, but here comes +1 Glacial Lance, soon to be +2 Glacial Lance. Urshifu takes! How does that happen?
Are you sure that's not very effective?
I don't know. I was like waiting to see the it's a critical hit screen, but no, that's just regular. That actually looked like it was a critical hit. That might have been the end of Urshifu as well. So, I mean, yeah, like you got some damage out, and that's all well and good, but at the same time, like Calyrex is at +2, and it still has like a meaningful chunk of health left.
That's what makes these Calyrexes so strong, right? You get a single boost off, and suddenly even Pokemon that resist it just takes so much damage. Now, Amoonguss at least does offer you redirection this turn, right?
That's right.
But what do you really go for? You can go for maybe there's the potential to pivot here. I like that option. I'm also curious how much like Draco Meteor does here. I mean, one play you could potentially consider right now is trying to get a Spore off with the Amoonguss onto the Raging Bolt. It's not completely over because Amoonguss at least puts on some pressure. You have to make the mind game of whether or not you decide to, do you just go for Thunderclap here? Amoonguss, of course, could then Rage Powder. Right now, it's pretty safe to go for Rage Powder and Surging Strikes on the Calyrex, for example. But yeah, I think Amoonguss here at least is the right piece for Dylan to try to claw back in this game.
Yeah, basically without Amoonguss, there's no way to stop Raging Bolt with any of the other Pokemon, I think. Like, you can buy a turn with Fake Out, but that's probably not enough. Calyrex switching out here, and this is the crucial turn, in my opinion. If Dylan attacks with Surging Strikes into this Amoonguss, the game is over, because Urshifu will knock itself out with the Rocky Helmet item that Zee has chosen to run here. So let's see. It all comes down to who Urshifu targeted. It is Close Combat, a really smart play there, keeping themselves in the game. But the thing is, I mean, Close Combat doesn't do that much damage, and Urshifu still takes a little damage, loses some bulk. And I mean, Aaron, I'll keep it real. I don't see a way through this Amoonguss.
Yeah, especially with the Amoonguss not going for Spore there. And I mean, Urshifu is just up against 3 Pokemon that resist Surging Strikes, right? So yeah, this one looks pretty over to me, especially because the Amoonguss on the opposing side can just redirect attacks away. I mean, what do you even try to do here? Like, protect Urshifu's Spore into the Amoonguss?
Yeah, I feel like you have to. I mean, you're also taking damage from this Draco Meteor potentially, or yeah, like there's just so much pressure here. I think that if you're Dylan, probably the way back into this is using the move Pollen Puff to heal Urshifu a bit, but that only, like, it doesn't really answer the question of how do you get around these really, really powerful Pokemon that all resist Surging Strikes into Close Combat. Is, I mean, it'll probably KO Calyrex at this point, but like any of the other Pokemon can just take it so well, while also mitigating the fact that Rage Powder will always keep Amoonguss, will keep the partner safe because of Amoonguss. So it's looking pretty tough here, and I think really, okay, it doesn't protect from the Urshifu here. Let's see what happens the rest of this turn. We are going to see Raging Bolt protect as well, so I mean, yeah, really smart play from Zee there, saying basically like either I get a Spore or I burn through Urshifu's Protect. Both Amoonguss, I think, no, it's just the Spore into the Raging Bolt here, and then let's see what Zee's Amoonguss went for here. It is the Pollen Buff, so that was actually a bit of a prediction. Spore, I think, would have been safer, but they said, your Urshifu is definitely going to protect, so no need to waste a Spore into that slot. And now it's just getting, like, the resources are just running out, like, so quickly.
Totally, yeah. I think the idea behind going for Pollen Puff there is to just chip away Amoonguss a little bit. Maybe Draco Meteor now can get the knockout, so you can just Draco plus go for... okay, it looks like actually try to double up onto the Urshifu, forcing, okay, if you go for Rage Powder, it means you're not getting Spore off. This way you don't have to deal with risking a potential Draco Meteor miss, for example. I was actually looking at the team sheets, and Zee has the Pollen Puff, but Dylan actually does not have Pollen Puff on Amoonguss, and so it can't go for side Pollen Puff onto Urshifu, which makes it so much more difficult. And Amoonguss does go for the Protect there, but we saw what Zee was opting for. Urshifu should faint this turn. It's going to be Close Combat. You're hoping for a critical hit at this point, but even if you were able to get that, the Amoonguss would just knock out Urshifu, or put it to sleep, I should say. Then Calyrex Ice Rider comes out, and so felt like a pretty major Pokemon advantage here. Urshifu faints. Calyrex Shadow Rider was just not able to do enough in this game. It traded for a Pelipper, essentially, like you called out in the beginning, and that's not what you can allow to happen. And I think Zee just had so much control in terms of always threatening with super effective damage throughout the course of this game.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at this game, it really was a tale of two horses, right? A horse with two tails now. Because really, I mean, Calyrex did so much work, right?
Yeah.
Not only did it knock out the opposing Calyrex, not only did it one-hit KO the Rillaboom, it did so much damage to Urshifu that a single Surging Strikes with the Rocky Helmet chip would then finish it off. And so that's so much value compared to Dylan's Calyrex, which, I mean, it KO'd Pelipper, which, like, Pelipper was kind of there to put pressure on the Calyrex in the first place. So it, like, Pelipper really did its job. It was kind of the unsung hero there. It broke the Focus Sash and then took all the attention away. So I'm really interested to kind of see how the future game goes and how Dylan adjusts. I feel like if you're Z, you should be feeling really good there because something that's really hard that we don't talk about that often in competitive Pokemon is identifying the correct 4 Pokemon for the matchup.
Exactly.
And it really felt like at every point in that game, Z had the perfect Pokemon to bring in. And on Dylan's end, I think Amoonguss was the right last Pokemon, but like, and Urshifu was good as well, but like it didn't like things didn't really come together in the same way, at least for me watching this, you know?
Yeah, I think one of the Pokemon I was interested in on Dylan's end was this Incineroar, right? Your safety goggles and you have Will-O-Wisp, and we were talking about that before the game started. Now, Incineroar feels kind of awkward to bring into this matchup because of that Pelipper. That's why Pelipper Calyrex is such an effective lead. You are able to threaten the Incineroar immediately with that Weather Ball, which of course deals super effective damage, and it's Ghost Terra Pelipper as well, so you could even theoretically Ghost Terra to get around Fake Out, for example. But I think Calyrex Ice Rider was just able to do way too much damage in that game, right? There wasn't really anything that resisted the Glacial Lance other than Urshifu, but is that really a resistance when that +1 Glacial Lance does so much damage? And I mean, Urshifu offers decent offense, but Z just brought so many Pokemon that resist Surging Strikes, that resist close combat even, and so I think I'm immediately thinking about Incineroar from Dylan's end, or just a better like preservation of Calyrex, especially now seeing that the Pelipper was like faster than Rillaboom. I was thinking, okay, if Rillaboom's somehow faster than Pelipper, turn 1 you like get that double up onto Pelipper, you get a knockout, then you can actually start snowballing, but that's not even the case, and Dylan was just kind of taking like a middle ground play on turn 1, but that trade was not working out positively, so I think Dylan probably needs to play a little bit more aggressively, and maybe Incineroar needs to come out in this one as well.
I totally agree. I kind of feel like if you have Incineroar with Will-O-Wisp with safety goggles, what are you using for if not in this matchup? But it's going to be the exact same leads from Dylan, so we'll have to see if there's a Pokemon.
Okay, a run back.
Yeah, you know what? This time's for sure. I mean, it is worth noting that turn 1 could have, like, there's a lot of mind games going on here, right?
Yeah.
Like we identified the Nasty Plot mind games. There's also the option of just doubling into Pelipper with Grassy Glide, Psyshock, and if you get that turn right, I mean, you get a Grimnay boost. That's actually even better than getting a raw Nasty Plot up. And so, yeah, like, I mean, there's a lot going on here, and maybe Dylan said, you know what, like, last time I got it wrong, this time I'm getting it right for sure.
Yeah, so you can see that this time Z is considering going more offensively. I mean, Glacial Lance is ridiculous here, right?
So
like, you just deal so much damage, and so there's this consideration of who to target with the Pelipper right now. Of course, Rillaboom not going to really take that Glacial Lance super well, and so like kind of the obvious place to just target Calyrex, yeah, and then you just aim for a double knockout here immediately, and this can be insanely oppressive, right? I mean, one way you could get around this is obviously going for something like Fake Out into maybe an Astral Barrage immediately. There's no switching into Incineroar here, so we're just going to start with some immediate offense, and it's going to be a Terra to kick things off.
Using the Terra turn 1, I think it makes sense to use in this matchup on Calyrex because you want to turn off that Ghost weakness, and it also means that you aren't, again, so susceptible by not going for Wide Guard, right? You're not taking so much damage from Astral Barrage, so really the onus is on Dylan to get this play right. It's a protect from the Calyrex. Oh boy, let's see what happens here. What's Rillaboom going to go for? It is Weather Ball into the Calyrex here, so good to block that move here. This is most likely going to be U-turn. Let's be honest with ourselves here. It is U-turn, and actually that breaking of the Focus Sash can end up being a big deal. But the question is, who's coming in? Because if it's Urshifu, I'm not sold, Aaron. I don't know if it's going to be good enough here.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking Incin would be really interesting here. The scary thing about Incineroar, and there it is that it's still weak to the Weather Ball from the opposing side, and that U-turn did do some damage, but it's not in Psyshock KO range, and this is why Clear Amulet's the best item on Calyrex Ice Rider. You just get to ignore the Intimidate completely, but I like Dylan's play a lot, at least on turn 1, where you don't lose that many resources, you force a Terra out, but I still think it's kind of tricky from this spot.
Yeah, I do think at least that this is better than kind of how the early game went last time, because the nice thing about having both Incineroar and Rillaboom on the same team is that you're able to threaten multiple Fake Out users. Like, if you want, you can kind of switch them in and out pretty freely, and so here there's still that Fake Out and Nasty Plot mind game, but you also have the option to Fake Out Astral Barrage. To be honest, it might be kind of tempting to go for, like, you know, like you identified Psyshock's like the KO, but I bet Terra Ghost Astral Barrage will, and so it could be tempting to say, hey, Fake Out into the Calyrex and Terra Ghost Astral Barrage. You also don't even need to go for a Fake Out here. You could go for Will-O-Wisp and Terra Ghost Astral Barrage. It is the Wide Guard, though. Big opportunity for Dylan here. We don't see the Fake Out, do we?
Let's see. Okay. Oh my goodness, the correct call. Astral Barrage is going to come out, but this might mean a Will-O-Wisp from Incineroar onto Calyrex Ice Rider, which would be absolutely huge. But you've got to hit that Will-O-Wisp, and it does connect. Must be nice.
That is something that I haven't seen on every official broadcast, is all I'll say about that one, but that is a huge turn. And what I think is so interesting about these restricted formats is that oftentimes turns that have massive implications for the rest of the battle, they don't always look so flashy. Like, okay, like Dylan did, I mean, kind of 0 damage there. 1/16 of Calyrex's health, right? Looks like around 12 damage there, which doesn't feel that important, but that was a major source of offense that last game. And actually, depending on the speeds of these Pokemon, assuming that Incineroar is actually faster than Calyrex, so slower in Trick Room, there's a real opportunity to just parting shot the Pelipper, protect the Calyrex, bring in Rillaboom, and kind of start the spin cycle, so to speak.
Calyrex is going to start things off here with Glacial Lance, but Incineroar now really not taking too much damage with that resistance. This was the adjustment we were talking about, and I think Dylan finding that, nailing it. There's that parting shot like you call that as well. And yeah, now you get to cycle in, Rillaboom back in. You could go to your fourth as well, but I think being able to cycle Fake Out is nice. You know, the scary thing is even at -2 attack, like Glacial Lance still does somewhat meaningful damage, but we also critically know that the Rillaboom is slower than Pelipper. So under Trick Room, Rillaboom will be able to outspeed the Pelipper, which is a really big deal. You've got that Woodhammer, Grassy Terrain is still up, so you can just snail Woodhammer immediately into Pelipper, but it's actually going to be Amoonguss as the last one. Okay.
Interesting. So we see no Urshifu this game. I think that makes sense.
Oh, but it takes the Hurricane, so I mean, it's at -1, but that is still a lot of damage.
That's still no confusion, so that's definitely nice. But I mean, here, the interesting thing is that a lot of it feels like to me, a lot of the game plan on Dylan's end is dealing with the Pelipper and then trying to win with the Calyrex. And it felt like last game, they did that by they attempted to do that by taking up Pelipper early, but they lost Calyrex in the process. So here, disabling Pelipper with a Spore can end up paying pretty big dividends, because this turn, because of the burn, I don't know if Amoonguss will tank this Glacial Lance at -2. I think it depends on how it's trained, to be honest.
Yeah.
But Calyrex can probably pretty safely go for a nasty block here if it wants. And +2 Calyrex, +0 Calyrex are, in my opinion, very, very different Pokemon. We are going to see Pelipper switch out here, give it a chance to reset the rain, which will end the following turn, which can be useful for later on in the battle, or yeah, just to save Pelipper. No need to fall asleep if you don't have to, right? And it is a Spore. Great prediction there. So now the question is, how much is Glacial Lance going to do to these Pokemon? It really depends on how they're trained. Here it is, Glacial Lance.
-2, and it still knocks out the Amoonguss. Are you kidding me?
That is absurd.
One critical thing as well, by the way, is that the Amoonguss on Dylan's end actually a Citrus Berry, but the Citrus Berry was turned off. And so had that Citrus Berry activated, it would have healed back. And I think if it got that extra recovery, it probably would have survived that Glacial Lance. But like you called out, this game is all about enabling Calyrex. However, you still have to get around the fact that Amoonguss is now out on the field. It pressure Spore. Of course, now you can pivot back out into Incineroar or Rillaboom. I'd probably go Incineroar here, and then you pressure Fake Out onto the Amoonguss, and you're just trying to buy some more turns, right? So I think one of the things for Z to consider is, can I get Pelipper back on the field safely so I can threaten Wide Guard? The last thing you want to do right now is just switch in Pelipper, lose it to an Astral Barrage, because then Calyrex just really goes in and starts, you know, clicking Astral Barrage on everything. And so I think this turn you can see the potential pivot to go into Raging Bolt here. I mean, Calyrex is at -1. We saw how much damage it did to Amoonguss, right? This thing, even Burn, is still picking up knockouts, and is a testament to how powerful this Pokemon is. Yeah,
it's actually like pretty interesting here, because even though Amoonguss went down, you then get Fake Out pressure immediately, right? And so Fake Out Astral Barrage is a pretty scary attack, and Calyrex gets a KO on pretty much anything at this point. It's possible for it to just run away with the game, depending on its health here. So like, this turn to me feels really crucial. Yes, Amoonguss went down. Like, yeah, that's not ideal.
And there's the Terra.
That's probably going to be the Ghost Terra if I had to guess, though. I think I've been wrong about every Terra thus far.
You got one. You're on the board, Wolf.
They were in my ear. They're like, yeah, well, if you get this wrong, you're off the desk. Like, we're going to have to bring somebody else from outside. So it is going to be the Ghost Terra here. I don't know if +2 Ghost Terra is enough for Calyrex.
I don't think so, but...
I don't think so either, to be honest.
Let's see.
Protect from Amoonguss is really risky here, because it's not a double protect here. It is Fake Out, calling it correctly. If that had been to Calyrex, it probably would have been game-changing. Here we go. We have +1 Calyrex, but it is burnt, so that's 75% of the power would have been otherwise. I think. How much is it going to do?
Oh my goodness.
That's a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage, Aaron. Astral Barrage coming out, and the question is, will it KO? Will it do enough damage in exchange? Because there's still one turn of Trick Room after this, which means, like, yeah, like being able to. That's the good opportunity to reposition here if Calyrex survives.
Oh, it actually does get the knockout. Okay, Ghost Terra, giving the extra little bit of firepower that it needs in order to secure that knockout. But there's that Raging Bolt in the back, and Raging Bolt has that priority, Thunderclap. So without Thunderclap, you know, I think it would be a lot scarier, but now you can kind of just bring Raging Bolt out. The key thing here is that Incineroar on the opposing end does have safety goggles, so you can't just Spore that slot. Calyrex, of course, right now could angle for something like a Protect, so I think one thing you can consider is like Protect Calyrex, switch the Incineroar out into Rillaboom, so then you have Fake Out plus Astral Barrage, but Z also just has Protect on every Pokemon, right? So you can kind of just Protect to get around the Fake Outs, then pressure Thunderclap after.
Absolutely. I think actually something really crucial here is the fact that Rillaboom's Grassy Terrain will gradually be healing up the other Pokemon on this team, right? Where normally what I would say is like, yeah, like, I mean, Thunderclap always covers the Calyrex, and like you identified, everything as Protect, so Fake Out Astral Barrage can't really cheese a KO in any way, but here, I mean, you parting shot the Raging Bolt, you go into Rillaboom, then there's a turn of Grassy Terrain, you fake out Astro Barrage, turn of Grassy Terrain, protect U-turn, turn of Grassy Terrain, and now with the -1, fake out Astro Barrage, turn of Grassy Terrain, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, how did Calyrex get all this health back, right?
Yeah.
Because there's never a chance to really hit it. There's the protect, so something I want to call out here is that Zee has been very aggressive with these predictions. I think this turn we're going to see a double up here. It is the Pollen Puff, as you see. This could have backfired in a pretty major way, right? If this had just been, you know, like Astro Barrage,
yeah.
game over. You know what I mean? And so I think, like, if I'm Dylan, I'm thinking, man, Zee's been getting a lot of these calls right. I got to call them at some point, but I think in this point, I actually think that Dylan has the lead because of what I just identified with the Rillaboom, with the double fake out. The thing about having 2 fake out users is that they're extremely strong when they're together. And as long as both of them are still around, it's just so dangerous. Now, there are ways around this. Draco Meteor could crit. Thunderbolt could get a paralysis, which would actually add a lot of variance here. But with the -1, even with the booster energy, yeah, I mean, you can see Rillaboom after a fake out is basically going to be back to full HP.
Let's see, Grassy Terrain now out, and Trick Room has expired. So yeah, like, you can consider the double protect play like we were talking about, but now there is this interesting idea of, like, do you predict the protect on the Raging Bolt end and then just straight up switch the Rillaboom back out into Incineroar, and then you have fake out Astro Barrage. I actually think that, I mean, that would be a game-winning play here potentially right now, because if both Pokemon protect, then you really have to hope for a double protect the next turn. So I think this turn's huge, but no switching back into the Incineroar.
Yeah, I think that's smart. Like I said, like, Zee needs to prove that they have a way to stop this fake-out cycling, this blender, so to speak, with the recovery, because Calyrex, every turn you delay kind of making that kind of aggressive prediction, Calyrex has more HP, and, like, I mean, -1 Thunderclap with the booster energy, like, against Calyrex, like, I don't know offhand how much that's going to do, you know what I mean? That's not a situation that's ever come up for me, so I'm not sure if these players are going to know with certainty how much health Calyrex needs before it becomes safe.
Yeah, so Calyrex now continues to heal back up, and so you have this interesting decision of, okay, I could Thunderclap and Spore into the Calyrex slot, but then Calyrex, of course, could just go for a Protect here, and then you pivot that Incineroar back in. So yeah, there's the Thunderclap Spore play I was talking about. So the obvious play now is you protect Calyrex, switch the Incineroar back in, and then here we go. I actually have no idea how much this Thunderclap will do. Okay.
Yeah, well, we're not going to find out, and sorry to tell you. I think this makes sense. I mean, Dylan has been playing very safe, but when you have the lead, it's not always the time to make the prediction, and yeah, like, although it was a little risky because Incineroar, if it had switched in here, could have taken a Draco Meteor and it might have lost actually that kind of safe cycling that we've been used to. Yeah. It's just so risky to leave Calyrex vulnerable because, like, yeah, I mean, it's already -1 on the Raging Bolt, and Draco Meteor would mean that you then get more pressure, so I think that this makes a lot of sense. And actually, Incineroar benefiting a little from this healing as well as a Pokemon that is so naturally tanky.
At some point, I think someone's going to have to make a big play.
Someone's going to make a call. Otherwise, we're going to be here for a while and just gradually watch the HP bars go up and go up and go up. So, is this the turn, Aaron? Is this the turn where you would say, hey, it's time to make a call? Or?
I don't know. I think the turn I would have gone for was the Rilla into Instant Switch and just go for it right there. But obviously, that's already happened. So, okay. Oh, okay.
Oh.
I was going to say, Sporing Incineroar doesn't really accomplish too much. Okay.
It doesn't happen.
Oh, Raging Bolt is going to go for the Protect here.
Another Protect.
It's just a double Protect, yep.
It's funny because, like, quote-unquote, nothing is happening, but everything is happening. I mean, if you look a couple turns ago, Calyrex's health was so low, and now, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it.
You're going to say it?
I'm going to say it. I think Calyrex is out of Thunderclap range, but the question is, does Dylan agree with me? There's also, we have to keep in mind that Pelipper could come in, which could complicate things, right? Because then you're playing the wide guard mind game.
Yeah,
with,
exactly.
Yeah, and importantly, whereas Amoonguss is not able to threaten either Incineroar or Rillaboom in a meaningful way, not the case for Pelipper, right?
I agree with you, though. After looking at that recovery, I feel like it does survive. So this might be the turn. You just go for it. Or if you decide, okay, I don't think so, you could just protect Calyrex, switch back into Rillaboom. Oh, I get it. You don't want to take any chances, right? You might as well take more recovery, but that could have been a Draco Meteor onto the Incineroar slot, for example. But now, I agree with this, because now you're at -2.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the thing is that if you go for this play, unless... Oh, wait, yeah, because Protect was just used. Like, either way, Raging Bolt's going to be at -2 or, like, -3, barring a Thunderbolt critical hit. That would be kind of... And you probably feel comfortable at this point anyway. So, I've never seen this Pokemon before, Aaron, but here comes Rillaboom. And Amoonguss going to go for a Spore, also blocked by Calyrex. And this is kind of how I feel. I actually think this match is illustrating one of the main strengths of Calyrex Shadow, which is Calyrex Shadow with a lead, with its support, is almost unbreakable. Because it's exerting so much pressure. Like, when it has the Nasty Plot up, you, like, feel forced to keep attacking into it. Like, we've seen Zee make some amazing predictions, but the part of the reason they don't want to do it here is because, like, it's so risky. Get it wrong and lose the game on the spot. Both players know that. So, this is the turn.
This is it. Yeah, we've been building up for so many turns here, but this Calyrex now finally has healed enough, and it's -2 Raging Bolt from the opposing side. I would think Astro Barrage just picks up the double knockout right now. I'm willing to bet on that.
It's actually +3 because it got the KO on the Calyrex.
That's right, that's right.
Here it is, +3. Astro Barrage coming out here. Will either Pokemon survive? They're both so tanky.
Bye-bye. No! Oh, it's a crit on the Raging Bolt.
I don't think it matters.
I don't think it matters.
Maybe. Hey, you guys want to see a magic trick? Watch both of these Pokemon disappear. Bye-bye. Calyrex is actually going to get 2 special attack boosts here. And, you know, I don't think Pelipper is a bad Pokemon by any means, but if I had to bet in a horse race between, you know, Pelipper with Focus Edge broken and +5 Terraghost special attack, Calyrex, I think I'm betting on the horse.
That was so cool though, right? Like the Incineroar adjustment really changed things up. It was a much better tool because not only did it allow for that Will-O-Wisp on a Calyrex Ice Rider, but it allowed for the double fake out cycling. And that was really difficult to break through. So Dylan is going to take game 2, and we're going to go to a 3rd game here. What a fun set right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I feel like this is really showing what's so interesting about Regulation G is that it's so much about these restricted Pokemon, right? Game 1, Calyrex Ice, no easy way to stop it, kind of off to the races, so to speak, if you'll forgive my horse pun. And in Game 2, the horse that was off to the races was the other horse. It was Calyrex Shadow, right? And that was even factoring in. Amoonguss barely goes down early there. Like Dylan actually loses a Pokemon relatively early in the game, and an important one at that. If Amoonguss had stuck around, having that Rage Powder to help against the Raging Bolt could have just sealed things up immediately, right? One thing worth noting, by the way, is that Zee's, like, Amoonguss's Terra type is really important, in my opinion, because some Amoonguss choose to run Terra Dark, but Zee's is actually Terra Fairy, and Terra Fairy is really good against, like, Raging Bolt and certain other key Pokemon as well, but it's not super useful here, in my opinion, because, like, without Terra Dark, I don't know, like, it's just so hard to deal with Calyrex, and we saw how strong that, I think that +2 Terra Ghost Astro Barrage will probably KO most Amoonguss, depending on how they're trained.
Totally.
So,
I think the adjustment I was thinking about from Zee's end is Incineroar hasn't come out this set, and you want something that just resists the Astro Barrage, especially because the opposing Calyrex is also not a defensive Terra like Fairy, and so knockoff into that slot is really, really effective. And so I think coming into this matchup, I thought Incin, Pelly, Cali, like as a trio would be basically guaranteed brought, because it's like you bring your best 2 answers into the Calyrex Shadow Rider, and of course you have your strongest restricted Pokemon, and so I think that's the adjustment I'd like to see. Now Dylan can make the call thinking, oh, well, you might go into Incineroar now, so actually bring the Urshifu back out, but that's a big risk because we saw how Urshifu kind of played out in that first game, and so I think Incineroar here for Z would have huge dividends because Dylan, he brought where Calyrex, Rilla, Incin, and Amoonguss in that last one. You've got Safety Goggles Incin on the opposing side, so that gives you Intimidate into the attackers. Rillaboom and Incineroar gives you the Safety Goggle immunity into Amoonguss, and of course a resistance into Shadow Rider.
Not to mention, I mean, a huge part of that last game was Calyrex Ice getting burnt, and Z's Incineroar not only has the Safety Goggles, it also has Taunt. And so depending on whose Incineroar is faster, we could see like a battle between 2 Incins. Like, of course, the horses are important. Here we go, same lead again from Dylan. It's the Rillaboom and Calyrex tried and true, but
there
adjustments. Incineroar the Sleepy and Calyrex the Clear Amulet.
We have, I feel like this is such a good representation of what early format looks like, right? It's like the strongest fake out users and strongest support Pokemon with the stronger restricteds. But it's been a really fun war, right? Because in the first game it was about Calyrex Ice Rider just sweeping, and that last game was Calyrex Shadow Rider. So we're going to see who takes game 3 here. But of course, right now, Rillaboom exerting a little bit more pressure with that fake out. There is Ghost Terror on the Incineroar, but I'd be kind of surprised to see it come out this early on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the fake out pressure is really, really relevant. Sometimes these teams with Calyrex Ice, they used to run Farigiraf. Some of them probably still do, but now, like, that option of shutting down priority is not here. So this is still pretty scary, though, because Calyrex Ice, it really needs a nasty plot up in order to kind of be off to the races, and that's not really super easy to get here. I almost wonder if we could see something like a fake out from Rillaboom into Calyrex, and maybe Calyrex switching into Incineroar to get a little...
no switches,
No switches. Terra right away. This is something that Zee's been doing a lot. Just ripping this Terra Grass right away, just to say, hey, I don't want to mess with any, shenanigans when it comes to, these really powerful Astro Barrages, so I'm just going to Terra right away to be safe. We saw that +2 Terra Ghost Astro Barrage could KO around this, though. Here's the fake out, though, into the Incin, so this is a very risky play. If Calyrex just goes for the... it's Astro Barrage, actually. I'm very surprised to see that.
Likewise.
So yeah, Astro Barrage is going to get a little damage down. It does a good chunk of damage, but not that much. And I'll tell you what, not as much as Glacial Lance. Rillaboom thanks to the fake out, but we'll see you never. Look at how much damage that does.
Yeah, that is a surprising trade, I think. Like, Glacial Lance just does so much damage there, and Astro Barrage really doesn't do that much in return. And so I think if you're Z, you're really content with how that turn played out.
Absolutely, because there's not a clear way for, like, Calyrex Ice can KO Calyrex Shadow here, not the truth for the other way around. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that was a huge trade for Zee, getting rid of Rillaboom, breaking crucially breaking that fake out cycle, right? And Incineroar coming in here.
You have Will-O-Wisp, but I think what's scary is what do you do against this opposing Incineroar? Like, I was thinking maybe if that was like a nasty plot on turn 1, then turn 2 you fake out Ghost Terra, Astral Barrage.
Exactly.
Trying to just get that damage off, maybe calling out, I don't think your Calyrex is going to Terra or even attack. Maybe they're predicting like you stay in normal form and you go for Trick Room or something like that. But instead, I think Zee is off to a hugely just going with the offense. I think it's sometimes tempting to click Trick Room there immediately, but when you're staring down 2 Pokemon that don't resist Glacial Lance, it makes a ton of sense to attack. And Calyrex is just switching out right now. Critically to note, Dylan's Incineroar also does not have that Flare Blitz. You can't just knock out the Calyrex with Flare Blitz right now.
Okay, it is a fake out here, but I mean, like, knockoff comes out, but okay, couple things that are at play here, right? Dylan did not respect Incineroar in this game. Yeah. He has this Incineroar. Dylan brought Rillaboom, Amoonguss, Incineroar, and Calyrex Shadow.
Same forest game too.
Exactly, and Zee identified, hey, if you're not going to respect Incineroar, if you're not going to bring your Calm Mind Raging Bolt, if you're not going to bring your Urshifu, then like, I'll bring Incin. And yeah, this taunt Incineroar actually being super threatening, and there's still no clear way through the Calyrex either. You can't Spore it. I guess you can burn it, but like, it's +1 attack thanks to the KO it took on Rillaboom. And so, yeah, I also think something worth noting, by the way, between these battles is that a lot of times it feels like the player who won is the player who got more value out of their Terra. And game 1, that Terra Grass, super nice. In game 2, the Terra Ghost, really nice. And here in the game 3, I mean, here's the Terra coming out, but like, it's just not going to be as high value. It is the Amoonguss here, so probably turning into the Dark type here to turn off its Ice weakness, but I'm just not convinced, Aaron. I think this might be too little too late.
Yeah, I mean, it's your best bet here. I think you kind of have to go for that Terra, and the Incineroar is faster as well. So getting that taunt off, taunt's such a good move in this format. There's no Will-O-Wisp for you today. Glacial Lancer is still going to do a lot of damage to both of these Pokemon. Almost just knocks out Amoonguss anyway. Sludge Bomb is going to come out, but there's not enough damage there. Does not get a poison either.
Yeah, and Incineroar losing so much ground by not being able to not only Will-O-Wisp, but also Parting Shot, right?
Yeah.
Because Incineroar is slower, if you have the ability to Parting Shot, maybe bring in Calyrex, then maybe try and get either an Astral Barrage KO
Yeah, you just
or
Parting
like
Shot Glacial Lands here, right?
Yeah, like
it's so safe.
There's nothing to do, right? Incineroar can't protect itself. It doesn't have a recovery item. Like, yeah, like we're really seeing the strength of Calyrex Ice here, which is that, yes, you can set Trick Room up and potentially overwhelm like fast offensive teams, but you don't need to set Trick Room to win the game. I mean, clicking Glacial Lands at every turn, as it turns out, is a pretty good strategy.
Good,
so here's the Protect from the Amoonguss. We're going to see the Parting Shot next from Zee's Incineroar. They're going to switch out into another Pokemon, and now, like, maybe because of the damage that you did with Sludge Bomb, like, maybe Knockoff into Knockoff could have KO'd without the Intimidate, or without the Attack Drop, but now with the Attack Drop, like, I don't know. This kind of feels like I don't know, like it's like we brought a mouse to a horse race, you know what I mean?
I think it would have been really difficult for Dylan to win after turn 1. I honestly could not really see too much of a way to come back given the 4 Pokemon that were brought and given I mean, it's going to be Knockoff here onto the Pelipper slot and just another Glacial Lance. And I mean, this grassy terrain is also really not helping either, right? Like, Ice Rider is happy to just heal back up. And one thing that's really interesting, oh my goodness. That doesn't feel right. That does not feel right, Wolf. And like now, a Moon gets protected, and so you can just Glacial Lance once again. Pelipper can just launch a Weather Ball into that slot. Yeah, there's really not much you can do to defend against this. I mean, your best bet is, I guess, going for a double protect with the Moongus, sacrifice Instinct to get Calyrex out. But yeah, it's going to try the double.
I don't think it would work because of the wide guard too, right? Like, I mean, it was just, there's just such a huge deficit. Like you said, after that turn 1, losing the tool that helped you win the first game, right? You lost or the second game, you lost your fake out Vortex, right? And in the process, I mean, it was just so hard to come back from. And yeah, I think really smart adjustment from Zee to say, hey, you know what? Like, Incineroar's not being respected, I'm going to bring it. And also, I don't need Trick Room. Like, I know that there's probably like all these bulky Pokemon. Like, if I find an opportunity to just click Glacial Lance, it can just be really quickly over. And we're seeing, I think, the value of, like, or I guess I should say, we're seeing the weakness of Calyrex Shadow, which is that with a Nasty Plot up, one of the best Pokemon in the game, maybe one of the best Pokemon ever. But getting that Nasty Plot is really hard, and when you lead 2 Pokemon that both threaten it, it becomes very difficult for poor Calyrex. Look at this poor horse on its own. What can it do?
I totally agree. I think one thing that was also difficult in this game for Dylan is that, like, I feel like Zee just has more offensive options, right? Like, Pelipper, it's a Pokemon that a lot of people were talking about going into this tournament. Think about how well it matched up here, right? Like, not only do you have Wide Guard support, but you have Hurricane for Rillaboom. Poor Calyrex will not be able to get that Astral Barrage off. I mean, yeah, your only hope is for, like, a complete throw here. Yeah, and, like, Wide Guard just does not come out for whatever reason. But super safe to just go for Wide Guard and that Glacial Lands. And we're going to see Zee take this series after a really dominant Game 3. We saw a lot of adjustments throughout this series. It was Incineroar coming out for both players, but in Game 3, Zee leads it and just is absolutely dominant from turn 1.